In just under 3 hours' time, voting closes in the Labour leadership election. The result will determine the future direction of the party. There are 4 candidates standing in the race: Yvette Cooper, Andy Burnham, Liz Kendall and Jeremy Corbyn. Who's the favourite? It's a contest that has lasted months and months and months.
Jeremy Corbyn was nominated today by many MPs who don't agree with him and don't even want him to be leader. Simply, they said, to widen the debate.
The first thing it says is the moronic MPs who nominated Jeremy Corbyn to have a debate
It includes John Crudders,
need
though.
their heads felt.
And I'm asking people, do you know who these candidates are?
No. I never vote Conservative, so I don't recognise them.
Revolts brewing in Labour's senior ranks too. Andy Burnham, the bookies' favourite for the top job, opposes cuts to child tax credits for new claimants, contrary to his current leader's stance. As does veteran left-winger Jeremy Corbyn, who's gaining support in the leadership contest after starting as an outsider.
There is clearly a buzz around Jeremy Corbyn, the most left-wing candidate, enthusing his fans from the top of a fire engine here in Camden, packing out rallies in Bristol. The other 3 candidates have struggled to be heard.
We cannot just vote for ourselves. We cannot just vote for what makes us feel good. We cannot just vote for what you might call on Facebook what you like as opposed to what you dislike. We have to vote for others.
You know, this is why when people say, you know, what my heart says, I should really be without politics. Well, get a transplant, because that's just done.
4 Labour MPs have said the election should be suspended because of infiltration by anti-Labour troublemakers. Senior figures insist the checks are robust.
If people are going to be dishonest, then there's not a lot you can do about it, is there? But my sense is, from going around the country and meeting new members and supporters, that's not their motivation for joining the Labour Party.
The next quote: "It will be my pleasure and honour to host an event in Parliament where our friends from Hezbollah will be speaking, and I've also invited friends from Hamas to come and speak as well."
Yes, I chaired a meeting discussing the future of the Middle East and the Middle East peace process. I have indeed met people with whom I profoundly disagree on many things as in order to try and bring about a peace process.
Mike has texted to say Liz Kendall is nothing other than a Conservative in the wrong party. Shame on you, Liz Kendall. Go and sign up for the Conservatives.
If we don't back businesses and create wealth, we won't have the money to put into the public services people need.
And sexism, has there been sexism, do you think?
Well, do you think a journalist from a national newspaper should ask a candidate how much they weigh?
No. I don't.
No, neither do I.
I'm standing not because I want to be something, but because I want to do something. Because opposition sucks. We know David Cameron has a woman problem. Let's give him an even bigger one.
We've lost the sense of who we are, what we're about. You know, I'm going to give Labour the heart and soul back into the party because that's what we need to do.
And do you know
what? Because I am here this morning because my life has shown me that we still live in a country where the postcode of the bed you are born in pretty much determines where you end up in life. And if I exist for anything, it's to change that,
We live in a great opportunity, an age of the most fantastic opportunity. Let's embrace it, let's enjoy it, let's love it. But above all, let's dream and be creative.
Well, let's talk now to 4 Labour MPs supporting the leadership hopefuls. Jack Dromey is backing Yvette Cooper. Barbara Keeley is behind Andy Burnham. Wes Streeting is supporting Liz Kendall. And Richard Bergen thinks Jeremy Corbyn is the man for the job. Welcome, all of you. Is Jeremy Corbyn going to win, then?
Who knows? We'll find out on Saturday. I think we've all learned, haven't we, that polls aren't always correct. So I'm open-minded about what's going to happen on Saturday.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Even though you want him to win?
Well, I wanted Labour to win the general election as well, and that didn't happen, unfortunately, did it? So we'll see what happens on Saturday.
OK.
I think the polls are not that meaningful because the polling organisations actually haven't had membership lists. It's not like going out talking to people on the streets. It's been a difficult thing for polling organisations to do. So I think the
So you're genuinely saying you really don't know?
I think Jeremy's going to win, and I think he's probably going to win on first preferences, or at least he's going to be so far ahead I think other candidates may struggle to catch up. I think in the last few weeks Yvette has really come alive in the campaign, has made a really strong argument. Maybe that she's regained some ground, but I think in all likelihood Jeremy is going to win.
We should remember that people are
people
still
are
voting.
So
people are
if
still
people don't
voting
want
as
that
this
outcome,
programme goes
they can
out.
go online and they can cast their votes. That's absolutely right.
People are still deciding
I'm not
this
as
morning.
pessimistic as Wes. It's clear that Jeremy has got considerable momentum of that. There's absolutely no doubt. I also think you're right that in recent weeks, I think Yvette has demonstrated a sort of passion that actually so many now look for in the leadership of the Labour Party.
Why did she leave it so late?
I think her campaign has been a very good one. What has been very interesting is that, particularly from the Manchester speech onwards, is that we have seen the Yvette Cooper that I've always known, and I've known her for
Why
20
did she
years.
leave it so late?
We've seen the Yvette Cooper that I've always known. I want to see a woman who can win with roots and values, crucially not just win an internal election, but able to win the country as well. And the other thing is, to be absolutely frank, Victoria, we're the party of women and men. We've seen Labour lead the transformation of the political agenda on women. I don't want to see ours end up with a leadership which is all male. I think that would send the wrong message.
OK, well, that may well happen, and there isn't a great deal you can potentially do about that at this stage. If
there could be a balanced team, though. I mean, we very much need, if that is the result on Saturday, and clearly it could be, we're all clear it could be, yes. But that we need to ensure pretty well that we have a balanced team. And we're talking in the women's part of the Parliamentary Labour Party about how to address that and how to make sure that we have powerful women leaders still there.
We don't want to go backwards. After all the progress we've made, absolutely. We don't want to go backwards. I totally agree.
If Jeremy Corbyn does win, and I am loath to rely on those polls, of course, because of what happened in the general election, but if he does win, what does that mean for the future of your party?
Well, I think Jeremy's campaign, first of all, is, with respect, distinguished itself from the other campaigns, in that the other campaigns, no insult intended, have been traditional campaigns to elect somebody as leader of the Labour Party. But Jeremy Corbyn's campaign has been a campaign which has been a movement. It's been the only campaign which has been a movement. I think he'll take that forward if he's elected Labour leader, to turn the Labour Party into a movement, into a democratic movement. I think it'd be a different type of leadership, a more collegiate leadership. I think plenty of people who didn't support Jeremy, including MPs, will find themselves included in the decision-making process.
So more collegiate. What about policies? How will the direction change because of what we know about Jeremy Corbyn and what he believes in?
I think, I mean, I'd be more comfortable this morning, particularly still of voting, if we didn't talk about it, if it was a foregone conclusion, because it isn't. Andy Burnham is the Change candidate, but also the Change candidate with the biggest confidence vote from the Parliamentary Party, from MPs and from councillors. Sure. Andy's had an incredibly strong base throughout the country, and I think we should be thinking about that too. We should be thinking about the policies that we could go forward with Andy as a leader to win in 2020. I think the real difference is that Andy, and I have to say Yvette probably as well, are both candidates that we could see winning in 2020.
Sure. And just to take Richard's point, actually I think, unlike some, I think it's been a great thing that we've had hundreds of thousands coming to the Labour Party. There's been entrism, but it's been at the margins. I've met some wonderful, new, particularly enthusiastic young people. And absolutely right is that they want to be part of a movement for change. But crucially, it's also about winning the country. It's about reaching out to those GKN shop stewards in my constituency that I sat down with 4 weeks ago, who, to be frank, feel completely distant from us. So to talk to ourselves, ultimately, will not win an election.
All those people who've joined, are they going to end up making Labour effectively unelectable in 2020? Because Middle England will not follow, not go behind Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, other than we are able to reach out and win a mass of ordinary people, we will lose again. If I can just give an example, I came from the world of work. I was really pleased that we went into the general election saying what we did on the living wage, the minimum wage and 0 hours contracts. I was a founder member of the Drive for the Living Wage. Having said that, we ended up pitching to the bottom 20% of the labour market.
The same could happen again? Is that what you're saying before the next election?
It must not happen again, because those will always be the priority for me. But other than we connect with, for example, the 4,000 Jaguar workers in my constituency, we don't win a general election.
Is Labour unelectable under Jeremy Corbyn if he wins?
I think the challenge for the Labour Party, and I think we all experience discomfort. John Cruddas has just done a huge piece of work throughout the contest, which basically shows
it's sobering.
John Cruddas, I think one of our biggest thinkers, actually comes from more of the left-wing tradition of the Labour Party, but he's produced a whole series of research which shows on a whole series of key issues: the economy, welfare. The Labour Party's over here and the public's over
With
here.
a load of ideas for Ed Miliband before the election, and the electorate rejected it.
Well, I don't think a lot of John's ideas were taken on, but I think what John's doing actually is what Liz Kendall's done from the start of the campaign, which is basically say to the Labour Party, there are a whole load of difficult questions that we need to answer and some thorny things that make us uncomfortable that we need to address if we want to win people back from the Tories.
Give me one example that will resonate with people watching.
Well, on the economy, for example, you know, Liz has talked about the need to generate wealth and to be pro-business. And for some people in the Labour Party, they hear pro-business as somehow being anti-work or anti-working people. But the fact is, you can't invest in public services unless you've got an economy that works, that's creating jobs. But, something like welfare...
So if Jeremy Corbyn wins and he starts to talk in that language, will people believe he means it?
Oh, I think people believe Jeremy Corbyn. I think actually one of the reasons why he has been so successful in this process is because in an age when people don't trust politicians, he comes across a thoroughly authentic...
He's tapped into that discontent. He's tapped into that discontent.
I think if there's one thing that people are sick of, it's the same old business as usual politics. When I was campaigning both in my own constituency and other constituencies across the country, including marginal constituencies, I never heard anyone say, we're not voting for you because we're too left-wing. What I did hear people say is, we're not voting for you because you're all the same. I think that was unfair, because we weren't the same.
OK, well, on that point then, if Jeremy Corbyn begins to say, I am pro-business, I'm pro-aspiration, I'm pro... all the kind of language that Liz Kendall has used in this campaign, will people believe him?
Well, of course, Jeremy Corbyn's for the collective aspirations of ordinary people. Aspirations like being able to get a council house, being able to get a mortgage, being able to get a stable, well-paid job, being able to go to university without being priced out of it. And these are the kind of aspirations that are the main concern of most people across the country.
Who
was rejected in May.
We share those aspirations, but I think one of the things that's important and that we know from the analysis and research in the last few months is that we didn't have a popular leader. One of the outstanding thing that comes out of all the research now is that people didn't like the leader that we had, and I think one of the key things that's the most important still about Andy Burnham is he is the leading candidate in all the surveys in terms of how people view an electable leader for the Labour Party. So I think that is a key thing.
I just two very quick things. First of all, I agree with Richard. I think what we've got, to be frank, is a discontent with the political culture of recent years, and I share that view. I think we need to move on from where we have been. But on your point about employers, is that there is no contradiction between being pro-worker and pro-business. And in the last general election, we were for some workers, and we sounded like we were anti-business, and that was absolutely crazy.
Jeremy, you were there when Labour had to rebuild itself in the 80s. Lots of people watching will be too young to know what a searing period that was for your party. Just remind people about that time, and tell us if you worry that something similar could happen this time if Jeremy Corbyn wins.
We need to unite to say, never do we go back. I remember those wilderness years, bitter division, people denouncing one another in constituency parties, the Labour Party splitting. I was born on the left and I'll die on the left, but a crude left sectarianism that devastated Labour. We thought that the world was at our feet, and we then went into an election in 1983 and we lost by 140 seats. And then the miners were smashed, the dockers were smashed, the printers were smashed. So never, ever again do we divide in the way that we did before.
Have we not seen a little bit of that? So some supporters of Jeremy Corbyn have been incredibly rude to supporters of the other candidates, and been incredibly defensive when Mr. Corbyn has been asked legitimate questions about things he may have said in the past.
Jeremy's not done it personally, but to be absolutely frank, some of his supporters, some of the things that they have said about we can't wait to purge Labour MPs is absolutely wrong. And I don't agree with many of the things that Liz has said, but I have to say this. The treatment of Liz in this campaign has been utterly shameful, utterly shameful. And I think at the next stages on Saturday, it's going to be necessary to set a tone. Never again do we go back. I don't want to see Labour 18 years in the wilderness. That was the price we paid last time
Let
round.
me read a couple of messages from people watching you around the country. This texter says, the Labour Party that can't even run a leadership campaign can run the country. They are a joke. I mean,
Can I say,
Ballot papers, apparently, according to some, still haven't been sent out.
I think that's unfair. What you have to give the party credit for is we have tried something completely different this time. Other parties...
Any regrets about that?
Well, I think some obviously around the edges there have been some problems with it, and we changed certain aspects of it. But the other parties haven't even tried to run what's effectively a fairly open primary at a minimal cost. And I think, you know, we'll never change our democracy with which, as you say, people are dissatisfied unless we get into a situation of being able to try things. And if there are problems with it, we have to rule them out. But you should all be giving us credit for trying this.
I think it's positive that 500,000 people are taking this decision.
Very positive. We don't want to be in a situation where only 10% of people decide on things like who leads.
Lyndon on email says, as a Conservative voter, I really hope Jeremy Corbyn wins. Pat on a snigger there from Wes Streeting. Pat on text, we voters want change. The centre old new Labour is not working. Listen to the people, and it's very distasteful for the candidates to talk negatively about others. And John has emailed to say the Conservatives live in the real world, Labour seem to live in a dream world. Will you...
That point about New Labour and the language, I think, by the way, is absolutely spot on. I think if Jeremy does win, I think that's why the debate's so important. All of the questions I think Liz has thrown out have been absolutely the right ones, but I think if Jeremy's won, and we've argued, you know, across all three campaigns that Jeremy would be the wrong leader for all sorts of reasons, I think we have to both take the result on the chin, but also, with some humility, reflect on why it is that we've lost the argument and actually make sure the debate doesn't stop. Because I think what's gone wrong with the Labour Party for a long time now is towards the end of Tony Blair's period in office, the debate effectively stopped. It was the same when Gordon Brown was in office. Ed Miliband came in with his own agenda, and people understandably wanted to unite because of a gruelling defeat, but the debate stopped. And I think there's one thing that can't happen, and actually I don't think it would happen under Jeremy's leadership because of the character of Jeremy in terms of being open to debate. The debate's got to carry on.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Right, the Labour leadership contest is now into its final hours. Polls will close at midday. Yvette Cooper, Andy Burnham, Liz Kendall and Jeremy Corbyn, who is the favourite to win, will find out who gets the top job on Saturday. Our political guru, Norman Smith, is right here. Fill us in over the last few months what's been happening.
Well, Vic, let's be honest, this contest started out kind of as Dullsville Central, a particularly bad edition of Book at Bedtime. Now, it's become more like sort of the wacky races, and, you know, we political pundits are kind of rubbing our eyes and wondering what on earth is going on. So, let's have a look. We've got the four candidates here lined up on the starting line. So, we've got Jeremy Corbyn on his rather retro 1980s bicycle. We've got Andy Burnham, the Northern Charger. We've got Liz Kendall in a sort of shiny, super-duper Blairmobile. And we've got Yvette Cooper in a rather safe, sensible saloon about town. Now, Jeremy Corbyn only got to the starting line because Labour MPs thought, well, we'll nominate him. We don't really support him, but we'll nominate him just to hear his arguments. And he fell back pretty quickly because most people regarded him as a complete no-hoper. Liz Kendall, in a sort of super-duper Blairmobile, was the first to declare, first out of the blocks, but let's be honest, her sort of Blairite message didn't really go down well in the party, and her campaign never really got going, and she too sort of fizzled out and faded back. Andy Burnham, the sort of Northern Charger, he went to the front as the favourite because his message was, look, I'm not going to be the Westminster as usual politician, I'm a Northern lad, I'm going to represent the whole of Britain. But he too fell back when there were flip-flops and doubts over big issues like whether he would oppose benefit cuts. Yvette Cooper, who'd been sort of pottering along very sensibly and safely, last couple of weeks she seems to have slammed her car into top gear, burst forward by taking the attack to the government over refugees. But I think the thinking is she's left it too late, so she too is beginning to sort of fall back. Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbyn, who we'd all written off, has been busily peddling away, hoovering up the votes of people who are not Labour Party members but who've paid the £3 to have a say and getting them to vote for him. And all the signs are that he may have got enough of them to back him to give him victory. But, you know, let's be honest, there are four of them. It's like the wacky races. Anything could happen. We're just waiting for Muttley to turn up.
OK, we've had an email from one viewer saying, I haven't got my ballot paper. I want to vote. There's 2 hours left. She's cross.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a complaint from one or two people, isn't it?
The whole way this race has been run has been a bureaucratic nightmare for the Labour Party. Not just because some people at the death are saying, hang on a sec, haven't got my ballot paper. Now, you know, There are estimates, it could be a few hundred, could even be thousands. But the real bureaucratic nightmare is you've got all these new supporters signing up, and there are a lot of suspicions that a lot of these people, they're not really Labour Party supporters. A lot of them might be Conservatives, some might be Greens, some might be Trotskyists. They just want to cause a bit of trouble. And so the Labour Party has had to go into this extraordinary checking process, which has dragged on and on and on, and has caused all sorts of consternation.
OK, right. Neck on the block time. Mr. Norman Smith. Oh, God. Do you have a middle name, by the way?
I do, Stuart.
OK, Mr. Norman Stuart Smith. Who is going to be the next Labour leader?
Can I warn you, I only ever bet on one thing, and it is the Eurovision Song Contest, and I always get it wrong, so I would pay no attention to what I'm about to say.
OK, but say it anyway.
OK, I'm going to say Jeremy Corbyn. I'm going to say that because, you know, every Labour MP I've spoken to over the past few days, they are already game planning for life under Corbyn. In fact, one of Ed Miliband's top people just yesterday said to me that he thought Jeremy Corbyn would win, his words, by a country mile.
Really? OK, we'll see. We'll find out when?
Midday-ish on Saturday, a little before midday.